Theaceae, the tea family. Characteristics, these are dicots. They're mostly tropical, don't take much frost, but they are in the southeast U.S. The leaves are usually alternate and simple, which means the edges are fairly smooth. And they have a leaf tooth with a gland at the tip, which basically means the vascular bundle just ends at the tip. So sometimes fluids will leak out. They're generally pink or white and showy with a strong scent, and in particular have many, many stamens. The fruit varies, and economically importance, the tea and the camellia shrub and a few other horticultural interesting ones. Characteristically, the multiple stamens is probably one of the strongest features about this species, and additionally those leaves that are pretty simple, and the capsules. They are in the Theaceae, which is the same family as the heath or heather family is, the same order as the heath or heather family is. And not a lot of genera, between 7 and 40, depending on which Vickering taxonomist you want to listen to, and 500 to 600 species. Here you can see them on the plant evolutionary tree in the Theaceae. Economically valuable members, tea, of course, Camellia sinensis. The camellia, which is camellia, other species other than the sinensis, camellia horticulturally used species have much larger flowers. There's cooking oil, sometimes made from Camellia oleifera, and then there's a couple other horticulturally interesting species like Franklinia alahemata, Franklin tree, which was named after R. Franklin. The examples horticulturally, we have Camellia japonica, which grows wild in China and Taiwan, South Korea, South Japan. Documented as far back as the 11th century in China, where they were already using this thing for landscaping. It's introduced to Europe in 1739 and the U.S. in 1807. Originally they were not frost tolerant at all, but now there are some that can stand zones 5 and 6 winters, which is pretty much what we have in Iowa. The trick is, can they stand the zone 5 or 6 summers? And these guys would not be happy in your typical hot, dry August in Iowa. There's about 2,000 cultivars available. It's the state flower of Alabama, even though it's not even native to the United States. And the Chinese have long considered the white camellia to be a sign of luck. Tea, of course, is the biggest player in this family as far as humans. The folks at Kew Gardens, which is an enormous gardening and display landscaping area in a park in London, calls them the most important beverage in the world. Of course, London is in Britain, where they drink 165 million cups a day of tea, which comes up to 62 billion cups per year, which is basically quite a lot of tea, and that's just Britain. Britain being actually smaller land-wise than Iowa, so there is a lot of people there drinking tea. They do have a lot more people than Iowa. Possibly no true wild plants exist anymore. It's been collected and overcollected and hybridized that nobody really knows what the original plant was. And some plants that are growing wild are still suspected of being sort of remnants of historic cultivation attempts. It's probably native to Western India, Thailand, Cambodia, that area. These are shrubs that can get 50 feet tall, but when they're cultivated, they are kept about waist high so people can pluck the leaves. And they're considered invasive in Tanzania and Madagascar, parts of Africa, which is the usual story. You take something out of its native habitat and it loses all of the predators and problem things that keep it under control. So there's no insects chewing on it and no fungi attacking it, and then they can become invasive. Obviously, leaves are used for tea. It's been used in China for at least 4,000 years and introduced in Japan in 600 AD, so many years there, part of very complicated rituals that they have around tea. Tea extracts contain caffeine, theophylline, aminophylline, tannins, and a variety of other compounds, and of course this varies enormously with the plant variety and the way it is prepared. An important thing to point out is that there has been tea is historically been harvested by hand. There is some mechanical harvesting going on now, but it's not extensive. Often these plants are grown on hillsides, which are very hard to get any machinery on, and the need to be selective as to what buds are being picked is difficult to use mechanical means to do so. It's been a very high labor situation in some areas, particularly famously in Sri Lanka. People brought in to do this, extremely poor working conditions established, poor pay, mostly women that have no power whatsoever to complain. And if you spend a minute looking at the people with those baskets on their back, generally they fill one big basket in the morning, get it weighed, and then do a second basket in the afternoon. Iowa natives, there are none. These are truly tropical species that are not about to put up with Iowa's weather. There are at least a few in the United States, however. You can see the green blobs there show some locations, coastal, where it's going to be cool and dependably moist. There are 3 or 4 species that actually grow here. This one is Stewardia melacodendron, the silky camellia, and it is used in ornamental plantings. However, it does need just the right conditions and doesn't transplant well, so it's not widely used. Toxicity, of course, there's caffeine. Also, additionally, theobromine and theophylline, which are precursors of the caffeine molecule, are present in fairly high amounts in the leaves of tea. They can accumulate aluminum and fluoride if there's a lot of that in the soils, and if there's enough, that can be toxic. They tend to have calcium oxalate crystals at different levels. Ellagic acids are another thing that's often present and are currently sometimes being touted as being good for you. And gallic acid in particular is important in making iron gall ink. Historically, the galls on oaks were harvested to make this ink, but it also has been extracted from tea. And that's actually ink that was used as far back as the Dead Sea Scrolls. And your general writing, dipping your funny little feather quill into the ink pot through the 1800s. More information, there's Wikipedia, and additionally the Delta Intkey website has some pretty good information. That concludes the Theaceae.